Good morning and welcome, and thank you for joining us at our One World Spiritual Center online gathering on this beautiful August 28th. I'm so glad you're here. Before we jump into our gathering, I want to remind you that immediately following this gathering, we have a community meeting, our monthly meeting, and we are going to have some important updates for you on our steps going forward. So please be sure to join us on that. It's a Zoom event. If you need the Zoom link, please email us at info@oneworldspiritualcenter.net and we will get that for you. It's the same link that we use for Wednesdays, for the morning meditation, and for fellowship. So please jump on that and listen to some important updates. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad you're taking the next few moments to simply be with us. So as we begin, let's do what we do every Sunday, whether we're in person or whether we're online, and simply take a breath. That is such a centering and a peaceful practice. Just take a breath and bring your awareness and your focus to this opportunity to be together, to reflect, to just be in community for a moment, and just to calm down and be still. So take a breath. Be willing, be grateful. Even during times of transition, times of change, there's certainly transition happening with One World, but in our lives, there are so many areas of challenge, of change, of transition, of difficulty, of new things. Even in the midst of all that, we are grateful. We are aware that at every moment, we are surrounded by grace. So to that end, for my opening prayer, I'd like to share with you Rumi's lovely poem, Guest House. It just reminds us that every transition is an opportunity, even though it may first present as challenging or even as painful. It's an opportunity for new things, for new growth. So I invite you to listen. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. I just love to remember that in times of change where we don't know what's happening, we can't see over that horizon, but each is a guest to invite us to the next, beyond the next opportunity. So my talk this week is entitled, What, Me? I don't know about you, but I frequently have that notion. What, me? Why me? Why not someone else? And it's about new things happening. It's about encountering challenges in our lives. It's about our journey from uncertainty to knowing, from anxiety to peace. And yes, it's all going to fit in. So we know that there are many paths, especially at One World. We know that there are many paths to an awareness of the divine, and we are richer because we can draw from them all. That's why I talk about interspirituality, interfaith, different paths, because they are so rich with different articulations of what is really the same truth. Here at One World, we have indeed articulated a set of beliefs, the ground of what we practice, and I'd like to go over them really quickly. The first is we believe in one divine spirit, manifest in all creation. Now, we don't fixate on a name, as all names are an attempt to identify the unnameable. I love the way Charles Fillmore put it. He put it that spirit is a concentric circle in which the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. Think about that. The center is everywhere, here and here, in you and you and you. The center is in you, and the circumference is nowhere. The ramifications of that thought are huge. Next is we honor the world's diverse faith traditions and we take wisdom from each, believing there are many paths to the divine and each reflects truth. We believe that each one of us, this is important too, each one of us has the capacity in this life right now to experience ultimate reality. These are all aspects of what we call the perennial wisdom. We believe that we grow in awareness of our oneness with spirit and each other through sacred service, joyful community, and a contemplative practice that speaks to us. Whatever it is, meditation, lectio divina, contemplative prayer, whatever speaks to you, helps you grow in your awareness of the sacred. We believe that as co-creators with divine spirit, our thoughts, beliefs, and actions shape our reality and our experience. Reverend Chris talked about this last week. Our beliefs, our intention, our focus create our experience of our reality. These are our points of agreement. And beyond that, each one of us crafts our own individual journeys. Spiritual awakening is about the journey. You don't get to arrive. As Rabbi Rami Shapiro puts it, there are no fixed points on the spiritual path, only a direction. That's why we call it a journey every day up until the end. We don't get to plant a flag and say, here we are, we made it. We never make it. We just continue on that path. We realize that spiritual deepening is not a question of how many verses we can memorize, how many Sundays we don't miss, or even what you say you believe. It's about how you change, how you individually change, how you come to live your life, not from the outside in, at the whim of all the stuff being flung at you, but from the inside out. Religious scholar and author Karen Armstrong put it this way: religion is not about accepting 20 impossible propositions before breakfast. I love that image. But about doing things that change you. It is a moral aesthetic, an ethical alchemy. If you behave in a certain way, you will be transformed. The myths and laws of religion are not true because they conform to some metaphysical, scientific, or historical reality, but because they are life-enhancing. They tell you how human nature functions, but you will not discover their truth unless you apply these myths and doctrines to your own life and put them into practice. It's a question of belief and practice, and ultimately change. There are many who call themselves nuns. When asked about their religious or spiritual affiliation, they are joining with one of the fastest growing groups there is. In 2015, which is the last time these guys did this, the Pew Religious Landscape Survey reported 22.8% of respondents as religiously unaffiliated, up from 16% in 2007. Nearly 1 in 5 Americans say that they were raised as Christians or members of another faith, but they now have no religious affiliation. This percentage is larger for younger respondents. However, of that percentage, only 7% identify as atheist or agnostic. The remaining percentage, 15.8%, identify as, quote, nothing in particular, but something. They may be what Rabbi Rami Shapiro calls the spiritually independent, not affiliated, but still interested, spiritual, but not religious. Many are in that number, including many listening here. So what's the goal of the spiritually independent? For each one of us to live a life of meaning and joy and purpose. Our spiritual practices only matter if they lead to that, to help us engage with our world in a different way. As Lama Surya Das put it, if we can't find enlightenment, freedom, autonomy, divinity, and bliss, what a great list, amid every nitty-gritty detail of life, then all the rituals and sacraments, prayers, chants, yoga, asanas, gurus, and pilgrimages in the world are useless. They are useless if they don't change us. Change the way we live our lives, change the way we experience our lives. So back to our title for today, What Me? This is a big question with many implications. We ask it every day with all the choices coming at us nonstop, large or small, to take a job, to go back to school, to approach a challenge we cannot figure out. Every time life puts us on the spot, that question may arise, and it happens 1,000 ways and times. We don't necessarily consciously think of it, but it's the question that pops up. It represents all the excuses and barriers and reasons we throw up in our way to stop us from experiencing what I'll call our God self. This is the question our spiritual practice and growth helps us answer. It may be one of the most profound questions you ever ask yourself. When we ask what me, or a corollary of which is why me, it's really the same question, we affirm a belief that we are not really the right ones to do whatever we are being handed. Surely someone else is better suited, better trained, more aware, better connected, just better able to do whatever is coming our way, whatever opportunity or choice has been put in front of us. We don't even focus on the skill or the competence of this mythical other person, presumably better qualified person, even if we know who they are. We focus on our incapacity. I know you've had those moments. We all have had those moments. I certainly have had those moments. If you're like me, this question can freeze you into immobility and inaction. So what do? We look for an answer to the question. However, it doesn't help if we look for a solution on the same level what we're asking the question. Wasn't it Albert Einstein who said, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them? We're staying on that same level. That's also what Reverend Chris talked about last week when she talked about vibrational levels. I'm not talking about vibration so much. I'm just looking at it differently. I'm saying we need to change our paradigm. The question is born of doubt and fear and focus on the small I, the ego I, where we tell ourselves we are really nothing more than the sum total of our aptitudes, abilities, education, experience, or deficits. We have for the moment lost touch with the greater I that is at our center. Back to the perennial wisdom that teaches us we each have the ability right now in this reality to experience ultimate reality. That is the greater I at our center. To answer that question, again, we just need to shift our paradigm and open up to the larger question of who we are in truth. What is our place here, and who really are we? Are we small, separate beings here and gone, or are we something more? I said earlier that the reason we engage in our spiritual practices is to change ourself, to show up differently in our world. We practice in order to maintain that connection with our center, our place of knowing and stillness and peace, where we know whatever is happening, that we are enough. We are created as living expressions of the divine, and there's a place in us that always knows it. We just sometimes forget. We sometimes don't know where to find that place. That is what we believe. We affirm it frequently here at One World and in many other spiritual communities. However, how often in our experience do we behave as if we are the only exception to that rule? Everyone else may be a manifestation of the divine, but not me. Why do we think that this principle applies to everyone but us? Out of all creation, I am the only exception to the rule that spirit is rushing and flowing through us. Really? I don't think that's the way it works. We don't get to be that exception. In my experience, it is our practices that integrate what we cognitively believe with what we live as our truth. Our practices change us. As we change and deepen, we become more able to draw back and take a larger, more truthful look at the events in our lives and our own part to play in them. So in my life, I always talk about daily practices. I mean, I know I'm like a broken record, and I try to do them every day. Teaser alert, I don't always succeed. I don't always do them every day, but I try. I combine my own personal practice with reading and study of what others have found to be true for them, scripture of different faith traditions or books by different wisdom teachers from thousands of years back to last year. And I bet you do the same when you have time in your busy life. I bet you do the same. However, as I reach for these books or as I click the link, I'm reminded of one of my favorite passages in Emily Cady's Lessons in Truth. In lesson 3, she cautions against accepting as truth the experiences of others. This is what she wrote. In other words, there is a shortcut to the top of the hill, and while there is a good but long roundabout road for those who need it, we prefer the less laborious means of attaining the same ends by seeking directly the Spirit of truth promised to dwell in us and to lead us into all truth. My advice, this is Emily Cady's, my advice is, if you want to make rapid progress in growth towards spiritual understanding, stop reading many books. I just love that. Look behind me. Stop reading many books. They only give someone's opinion about truth or a sort of history of the author's experience in seeking truth. What you want is revelation of truth in your own soul, and that will never come through the reading of many books. What you want is your own experience of ultimate reality right now, and that does not happen with a book open in front of you and your focus on your cognitive thinking. I don't think she meant don't pick up another book. For one thing, that would have included Lessons in Truth. I think she meant don't stop there. Make sure that you know that what you're reading is someone else's truth or their best attempt to describe what their experience of truth seemed to them on that day as they recollect it when they're writing. Their experience of the truth they found, it may resonate with you and may even help you to unpack your truth, but you can't skip the interim steps. You have to do the work to discover your own. When I read the scriptures from any faith tradition, I don't read them to find the truth. I remember that I'm reading someone else's description of their truth or their experience of their truth that they are able to articulate to me using language. I see if it resonates with me, and if it does, I can incorporate it into my practice in whatever way seems best to me, and you can do the same. Why do we have to unpack our own truth? Because transformation is a spiritual process. It's a heart process, not a cognitive one. We can't think or talk or learn or process in that sense our way into awakening. It's not something we can whiteboard. I start here, I get there, and I awaken. That's not how it works. Spirituality is the direct, unmediated experience of the divine. So when I say unmediated, what do I mean? I mean that it's your own experience coming to you fresh and direct. It's aha, without anyone else interpreting it for you. The direct experience that brings you to that place of knowing that you are so much more than the sum of your attributes, your deficits, your experience, your education, whatever. You are so much more than the sum total of that. There is a large I, of which your small I is a part and an expression, but there is so much more. As Meister Eckhart put it, the I with which I see God is the same I with which God sees me. So many folks pursue such awakening through the lens of a specific faith. And that's great. Each faith tradition speaks of truth in its own imagery, and each practitioner immersed in his or her own tradition uses that language to convey what was experienced. For Christians, it's union with God. For Buddhists, it may be awakening to universal, non-dual consciousness and losing the self. For those practicing the Sanatana Dharma, it may be coming to know the Atman, or eternal, universal essence. These are direct, personal experiences. So what is interspirituality, that word we talk about so much? It's the willingness to experience the spiritual tradition at the heart of other faith traditions other than your own, and permitting yourself to view the ultimate mystery through the language and imagery of those different faith traditions so that we can imagine it and see it and experience it differently. This is why the Christian mystics loved their exposure to Eastern traditions, as it gave them the language and the imagery of non-duality, which they in their hearts believed, but they couldn't really articulate it. Non-duality, of unitive experience with the great mystery called by so many names. The practices of centering prayer and Christian meditation both were inspired by exposure to Eastern meditation practices. Conversely, many Hindus, those practicing the Sanatana Dharma, may maintain a Catholic devotional practice dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus as it relates to a primary image of Hindu spirituality, the guha or heart. The Dalai Lama told his monks to study Christian theology and mysticism. Look elsewhere. He also tells you to return to your own faith tradition of birth, but study other traditions, experience other traditions. Through the gift of interspiritual learning and practice, we widen our circle to include the experience of so many sages and teachers who have gone before. Not the truth, but their experience and expression of truth, their articulation of the unnameable truth. Because at the end of the day, ultimate truth cannot be articulated into our limited, small words, even magnificent words. What is the first line of the Tao Te Ching? The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. Hundreds of books over the centuries, sharing the experience of truth of so many seekers, all for the purpose of helping you experience your own. So why does all this matter? As we attempt to open up our view of ourselves and our connection to all of life, it may help us to heed the lessons of these different faith traditions as their truth can be distilled to this single point articulated in so many different ways. Everything is a manifestation of the one thing. In some of my meditations, I have a kind of my own version of the loving kindness prayer, and it ends with the line, "Let me see you in all things." And it's so simple, but it's so challenging. Let me see you in all things, not in some things, not in the things I like, the things that benefit me, the things that are way cool, in all things. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, "I am the light above everything. I am everything. Everything came forth from me, and everything reached me. Split wood, I am there. Lift up a rock, you will find me there." Rabbi Aharon Horowitz writes, God's only desire is to reveal unity through diversity. Think about that. What a mind-blowing thought. God's only desire is to reveal unity through diversity. That is, to reveal that all of reality is unique in all its levels and in all its details, and nevertheless united in a fundamental oneness. We spend our whole lives pursuing that truth, growing into that truth. In the Quran, it is written that God is as close to you as the vein in your neck. Everywhere, in all places, omnipotent, omniscient, but still as close to you as the vein in your neck. Our spiritual journey is our walk to incorporate that truth into our hearts and into our very being. The knowledge we are not separate, that there is no other. When you come to live that truth, the question of what me just fades into the background. As Rabbi Rami Shapiro wrote, when we come to that truth, we move from the conditioned to the unconditioned, from fear to love, from a constricted heart to an open heart, and from a closed mind and clenched fist to an open mind and an open hand. The story goes that after nearly a half century of teaching, the Buddha lay dying, just surrounded by his distraught disciples. In tearful whispers, they pleaded, "Blessed One, who will be our teacher now? Who will guide us? How will we achieve enlightenment without your help?" The Buddha's last words were, "Be your own light. Be your own light." You are on the journey of becoming your own light, of finding and being your own light. As it says in the Gospel of Eve, I am you and you are I. And in whatever place you are, I am there. And I am sown in everything. And in whatever place you wish, you may gather me. But when you gather me, you gather yourself. When you gather me, you gather yourself. So what a wonderful journey. No end, but every step a new awakening. So thank you. Oh boy, we could talk about that for a while. So what I'd like to do now is move into our prayer time that we also do every week. So let's just take a minute. And in that awareness of oneness and connection and divinity, just take a breath and be joyful, be grateful and joyful of the truth of who you are. So take a breath, feeling your heart open and warm, and just expand into the truth of who you are. Sweet Spirit, we are so grateful for all that we are, all that we have, all that we can bring to this magnificent experience we call life. We commit our gifts, our talents, our wisdom, our joy, our suffering, all that we are to this great dance. We are willing and we are grateful. And together we say, Amen. So what I'd like to do for the next few moments is just give each of us the opportunity to hold in our own hearts and in our own awareness our beloved in need of prayer, ourselves in need of prayer, upcoming challenges or circumstances or horizons over which we cannot see. Let's just let them rest in our awareness, releasing them to Spirit, releasing them to the great river which carries them and carries us along. Creator God, we know that each name of our beloved, each concern we have, each whisper of our hearts is heard. We release them to you, knowing that we are sustained and strengthened, knowing we do not walk alone, knowing that we are carried along, and we are grateful for the light and the love and the power and the strength that always surrounds us and lifts us up. And we widen our circle of love and light to include all beings, all who are in fear, all who suffer, all who are hungry, or the victims of violence, displacement, hunger, oppression, or want. We shower them with light and love. We open our hearts so that they may be lifted up and protected and sustained. May we know what to do with our gifts to be the hands and the voice and the feet of the divine here on earth. May we know what to do to lift up our sisters and brothers in all places so that we may indeed be the beloved community we know that we can be. May all be at peace. May all be happy and at ease. And so it is. And together we say, Amen. So I'd like to close our prayer time with a prayer of light by Rabbi Levine. And it's about healing and hope. So I invite you to listen. As we bring healing to those in need of strength, may our spirits be filled with the light of you. As we bring hope to a broken world, may our hearts be softened by the light of you. As we bring understanding to those who are suffering, may our arms be opened by the light of you. As we bring awareness to hatred, may our anger be lessened by the light of you. As we bring calm for inner peace, may our breath be deepened by the light of you. And may you guide us to those who seek our gifts, leading them gently and lovingly to the light of you. And so it is. And so we say, Amen. So this is our opportunity in our gathering where I express my gratitude for your continued support of One World. I know we are going through changes. We're going to talk about that some more at our community meeting. But your continued support helps us bring you the programs that we bring you, this gathering, our kids program, our Wednesday night, whatever it is we do, our book discussions, in which we have a lot of interest, and I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much for your continued generosity. We bless your gifts and we use them to the work of One World. Thank you so much. So Reverend Rebecca Johnson, our youth leader, has sent me a text for what they are doing this week. And the faculty they are exploring is will. Good one. And they are talking about why we must strengthen our spiritual faculty. She writes, strengthening our will is the key to spiritual growth. Once our will is strong, then we can apply that focused will to any endeavor or situation. A focused will exponentially expand the limits of what we can accomplish in our lives. So what are our kids learning with that? Excuse me, a focused will. In part, to me, it means that they are learning that they have the ability to direct their thoughts, to cultivate their own interior spiritual landscape, and to use these faculties, including will, to their continued growth. That's a fabulous thing to teach our kids, and I'm so grateful to Reverend Rebecca for doing that. So in terms of announcements, please join us for our community meeting, which is happening on Zoom immediately following this gathering for important updates. Leanne Rubenstein from Compassionate Atlanta is going to be our speaker on September 11th, I believe. So please join us for that. So in closing, also no community circles this Wednesday. We're going to be starting up again on September 7th. So in closing, I'd like to share with you a blessing from one of my favorite wisdom teachers, John O'Donohue, who comes to us from the Celtic Christian tradition. And this is a blessing. You've heard it before, but I just love it. So I'm going to give it to you again. I invite you to listen. May you recognize in your life the presence, power, and light of your soul. May you realize that you are never alone, that your soul and its brightness and belonging connects you intimately with the rhythm of the universe. May you have respect for your own individuality and difference. May you realize that the shape of your soul is unique, that you have a special destiny here, that behind the facade of your life, there is something beautiful, good, and eternal happening. May you learn to see yourself with the same delight, pride, and expectation with which God sees you in every moment. If we can live in that energy, nothing holds us down. So many blessings. We are now concluded. Have a blessed day, a blessed week. We'll see you next week. And please join us on the Zoom for our community meeting. Thank you so much.